everybody, welcome to Stamping with Melva. My name's Melva Peters and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada. And you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. And today I wanted to show you how to do what I call abstract watercoloring. Now I created this sample that I'm going to show you for a demonstrator event. So we, Stampin' Up! Put on a watercoloring class for demonstrators a couple of weeks ago, and I was asked to do a sample, which I was so excited to do. And so I decided I would do a technique that I call abstract watercoloring. Now, this is a way, and I've done this before on my lives and other videos, where you really let the water do its thing with it. And so you spritz your watercolor paper, and then you let the water kind of flow the ink around. So let me show you how easy this is. And as I'm sitting here chatting, I realized I forgot my spritzer. So I'm just going to grab my spritzer and then we'll get started. Let me switch over to my desktop. Let's switch over to that desktop. All right, grab the spritzer while I'm... There we go. Got one with water in it. Okay, so I'm using the Leaves of Holly stamp set. I was so excited that this stamp set and bundle became back orderable again. We are doing, the Creativity Abounds team is using this bundle, this suite, for its stamp camp at the end of October. So if you love this and you're interested in that, there's all sorts of information about the stamp camp on my blog. And the way you get an invitation or a registration is if you purchase the suite called Boughs of Holly, you are automatically registered for the stamp camp at the end of October. But I'm just using the stamps today. I just love these big holly leaves. The images are actually 90% of what they are. So the actual images are bigger than what you see here. So this is the card that I created. And so I just let the water do its thing with the ink on the front. I've added some gilded leafing. So if you don't like the messy look of cards, this kind of has, for me, a look of mixed media, which I love to do. I did some stamping on the back just to create some interest. And then I used, I believe this designer series paper is called Gingham Cottage. And so I used a piece of that. And I've cut those, both the Fluid 100 paper and the designer series paper out using the deckled rectangle dies. Now, the designer series paper is the second largest, and then the Fluid 100 is with the third largest. Okay, so let's get going, and I'll show you how you can make a card like this. So these are my supplies. I've got a piece of garden green cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring it at 4 1/4. And as always, I fold towards the raised line or the mountain and use my bone folder to get a really nice crease. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do some stamping in garden green. And I'm going to use the smaller of the two. Now, it's two-step stamping, so one is more of a solid image than the other. I'm going to use the more solid image, and I'm really just going to create a border. You don't need to stamp all the way around and cover your entire piece, because this is really going to be covered with the designer series paper and the Fluid 100. But I just really want to create a bit of interest around the edge of mine. So I'm kind of creating a border. I'm just stamping the leaf using garden green. Okay, so that's your card base done. Now I've got a piece of Fluid 100 watercolor. You really do need watercolor paper for this technique. So I have already gone ahead and cut it out using that third largest of the deckled rectangle. Now, I'm going to grab a silicone mat because it is a bit messy and we're going to get water. So what you want, I'm using two different greens for this. I'm using Parakeet Party and Garden Green. And let's get my 4-leaf stamps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the light ink first, and then I'm going to go over it with the dark. And I do need to clean this stamp before I use it again, because I'm going to use this one with the parakeet party. Okay, so I've got my parakeet party, and I'm going to use the solid leaf. Let's get these going the right way. The solid one on that, and then I'm going to go over it with the dark, and I'm going to use the solid of the two. I'm using the 2 different sizes of leaves. I'm going to take my spritzer that is filled just with water, and I label them water, and I have some filled with alcohol for when I do alcohol techniques. And I'm just going to spritz this. Now, I do make it quite wet because I really like the images to flow. So I'm going to, looking at my card, just hold it down and then lift it up, and you will start to see the water just kind of take over and flow. What I love is that all of the cards turn out differently, which is kind of fun. If you don't like that technique, this may bother you, but for me, I kind of like it. Now, this is the smaller one, and I've stamped up with garden green, and I'm going to go back over that. Again, there's still water on this, so that garden green is going to flow. Now, this is going to get more definition, I see, than the card that my sample card, which is cool. So I'm going to stamp that. Now, one of the things is you will see that my water has started to kind of flow to the edge. The watercolor will, the paper does curl a little bit, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that. Now, because this is definitely flowed a lot and this one isn't, I'm going to just take and see if I can force it to flow a little bit and make it. There we go. Now, again, you may not like this really messy look, and so you wouldn't want to do that, but I intentionally want to, and I'm just going to try and sop up some of the water. I've got it quite wet. So just take a paper towel or a baby wipe and just gently try and pick up some of that excess water. Now this is going to be quite different than my sample, which is okay. It was one of for me, one of the things I love the most about watercoloring like this. Now, before I completely lose the water, I'm going to put a little bit more down here, if I can. There we go. I want to stamp the berries in real red. So again, I'm going to just use real red, and I'm going to stamp off on this and then just put some berries right here. So they hopefully are going to be lighter. We'll see if this works. And then this is the 2-step stamp. So we'll just put some more here and in the darker. So yeah, I did get a little bit of darker color there. Okay, so I'm going to use my heat tool. Close those up, and I'm going to hold this down with my take your pick tool, and we're going to heat this. And just see if we can kind of dry it off a little bit for what it is. It's quite wet. It's not too bad. Let's pick this up. There. That off to the side. Okay. I'm just going to dry the back of it and see if I can dry a little bit more. if you are going to stamp on this some more and you don't want it to flow, you definitely want this to dry. And so leaving it to dry on its own works probably the best. But because I'm kind of in a hurry and I don't want you to have to wait for that to happen. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is if you can see my sample, I added some gold, and this is the gilded leafing. So this is another tool that Stampin' Up! Has that definitely reminds me of mixed media. Now it comes in a big jar. I put mine into a big container so that I can control it. It is very flyaway, and so you do want to kind of have control of this. Now, when I did mine, I literally just took, you can use heat and stick powder, but I just literally took some liquid glue, and I just kind of added just little bits of liquid glue up my card and a few little bit. I'm really not worried too much. I just put some liquid glue on mine, so you can kind of see the lines of liquid glue that I had. And then I'm going to take and just dip my card into the gilded leafing. And I have a sponge that I've cut up, and I'm just going to take, I'm going to get some more, my sponge, and very gently rub off. I don't want to rub it all off, but I'm just going to take it and try and rub it off so that I get kind of the big chunks off. There we go. And I am going to, you can see it kind of flies away. I'm going to cover this up carefully. Even carefully, I still get gilded leafing all over the place. All right. So really it's just adding some extra interest in gold on. So now we can start to put our card together. Bring in my other supplies. So this piece is going to go on like this, and then that piece like that. So we can take and adhere. If you like the bigger plaid side, use that one, but I kind of like the more solid red one without the white. Now you can either use your liquid glue, or because this curls a little bit, you could use tear and tape adhesive or Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to hope that the liquid glue will hold this down. So I'm just going to hold it in place. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to do for the front of the card is I've got a piece of real red. I didn't have a scrap, so I've got a piece of real red, and I'm going to stamp the Christmas Wishes sentiment just here at the bottom. And then I'm going to fussy cut that. So if you follow me at all, you know that I often will fussy cut my sentiments. And then this one, I'm just kind of going straight, or more or less straight. I don't worry too much if it's not perfectly straight. Just going to trim this edge a little bit. Try and make it a little straighter than. And then we're going to put this right here, and I'm going to use dimensionals. Now, when I do dimensionals, I tend to try and stagger them so that you don't get, especially if it's kind of long like this, I will use 3 or however many so that I have one in the middle. And then if it's a little bit wider, this is almost 1 inch wide, I stagger it so that it doesn't sag or wobble. And we're just going to put it even with the edge. Actually, I'm going to put it a little higher on this one because I don't want to cover up my pretty leaf. Okay. I really love this technique. And this is a technique, I will admit, isn't for everybody, but hopefully you'll give it a try. All right, so I'm going to bring my greens back in, and I'm going to bring my small leaves because I'm just going to stamp a leaf on the inside. So this is the solid one. So let's use the parakeet party. And then let's put the garden green over top. Like that. So it is two-tone. So you get the really pretty two-tone leaf. So that's what the leaf looks like when you don't add water to it. So quite different, because as soon as you add water, the ink, our inks, these stamp pads are water-based, and so therefore it will flow with the water. You can do the same technique with our Stampin' blends, not stamped, but just using our Stampin' blends, because those are alcohol based, and then you spray alcohol on them and they will move. That ink will move as well. All right, so there is my card. Like I said, it's very different. I love how they are different. I used probably different stamps, I'm not sure. So similar, but I did a different stamp on the back. But yeah, similar, but not quite the same, which is kind of fun with this technique. All right, so you will be able to find the written instructions, measurements, supply list for this card on my blog, and the link to my blog is underneath this video. So as you're watching my video, don't forget to take the time to subscribe so that you'll get notified when I go live or when I post a video. If you have any questions about the card, just leave a comment under the video, or if you found your way out to my blog, leave a comment there and I'm happy to answer them. But I do hope that you'll try this watercoloring technique. I love it. It's fun. You don't get the same card twice, as you can see, and maybe that's what I love about it. So hopefully you'll give it a try and see how you love this abstract watercoloring. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Happy stamping.